Welcome friends to another Dune video. Today we examine one of the most well-known abilities of the Bene Gesserit. As well as going over the basics, we'll also ask a few interesting questions about the voice. What are the limits of how many people the voice can affect? Can obstacles block it? Does language matter? How long does a command last for? I'll try to answer these questions with examples from across all the many Dune books. I have released this video before, but I've added a lot more analysis to this one, and frankly recorded it with a better microphone. As we are told very well by the Dune Encyclopedia, use of voice allowed a Bene Gesserit adept to gain control over uninitiated victims merely by altering the tonal qualities of the voice. Simple instructions or orders were then spoken in voice and obeyed dutifully, and voice is most often used to compel a typically unwilling person to do something undesirable or to glean truth from an unwilling recipient, and voice messages therefore go directly to unconscious parts of the mind and are not subject to scrutiny by the conscious will of the receiver, and compliance requires no voluntary decision. I find that interesting. They manipulate the unconsciousness, so they target a particular part of our unseen architecture, the underlying code we all have in us. We don't think about, say, grabbing a glass and filling it with water. Our unconscious deals with that. It's like hacking the coding of a PC, changing things without it noticing that there is a hack or a virus there. So maybe the command takes away your understanding of what the glass is, just as an example. So you look around for something you recognise that fits that shape, that look, and you can't identify or understand it from the images you have in your mind. It's just not there. How it feels in the hand, etc. So the voice with a command of that type might strip that away, and you can't grasp the concept as an example. Or you're told to walk off a cliff and you obey. The parts of your mind that would cause fear at the height and hesitate and the moment of the drop are shoved aside in the place of the Bene Gesserit's compulsion that they have said to you. And though you might feel those feelings, they won't have that prevention effect like it would on most normal people walking to that point. Another interesting wrinkle mentioned in the Dune Encyclopedia are particular subtleties of voice usage are the adroit, manipulation through concealed falsehood, and the Zunsuni Codex, a play of words that confuses or obscures the truth. Someone trained in the ways of the Sisterhood is able to monitor and control their reaction to this, such as to resist it, but you will see from the examples below, this isn't always the case. Now the Dune book gives us the basics. Affecting a group with the voice, gagging the mouth, stops you using it. We see this when Jessica and her son Paul are captured by the Harkonnens after they have taken back control of Arrakis. They have to be lost in the desert. Jessica is gagged and one of the Harkonnens deaf, so therefore will be immune to her abilities. But Paul manages to manipulate another one. Let's look at examples of the voice being used more like persuasion than to control. In Heretics, Shiana is commanded by Odrada to "Don't take that tone with me, child. Not if you wish to learn anything." Shiana absorbs what happened and then is happy the Reverend Mother came to train her. And the other between Paul and Jessica, where Paul thanks his mother for saying the right thing when he says Dune is not his world anymore. I'm just listening back to myself. He doesn't say that. He says Caladan is not his home anymore. Anyway, Jessica responds, "You may control an Imperium, but Caladan is still your homeworld, and its people are still your family as surely as I am." So these examples of voice to me indicate it can be used lightly, for lack of a better word, to just shake someone to see something rather than outright manipulation or control. Perhaps breaking down through those surface thoughts, through the back door of the unconscious, to get through to the stronger beliefs and emotions underneath. Another time Paul, as a preacher in Children of Dune, controls a whole crowd of people. An example of how many can be commanded by it. Perhaps the distance the voice is projected over is the key. I imagine he could increase the power and projection of his voice using his Bene Gesserit abilities to control his body. Does that single will of command get split between all who hear it, or does it strike them all with the same intensity? Either way, it's strong enough to get what he needs. The Dune Encyclopedia also confirms that a Bene Gesserit could manipulate individuals or large groups by triggering Clutone and later women especially gifted with the great control, could manage any number of people in any situation. In Winds of Dune, a sister uses voice to command a group of people, but the front three block her access to a fourth, who does not obey her words. So we see that location is important, and that the physics of sound can hurt how effective it is in reaching those the Bene Gesserit is trying to affect. A limit that they will be aware of, and I think placement of the Bene Gesserit before they're going to use the voice will be a key part there, looking at the terrain of the people and the objects around them to determine the best point from which to use their abilities. In Sans Winds of Dune, we see a Bene Gesserit address a crowd of people with different voices, accents and languages, and the message cuts through them to them all. So I wondered, perhaps the voice can cut through the barrier, so long as the Bene Gesserit have been able to register those she wishes to manipulate, and that language is not a barrier. Would a Bene Gesserit be able to manipulate someone if she spoke a language the subject did not understand, perhaps straight to the subconscious? And I imagine the things they read to register you will be partly based on reading of the body and the way you speak and say things. Even if the language is unclear, there are structures to language that run across a lot of different spoken languages. And so if the Bene Gesserit knew some of those underlying points, that might help them in their manipulation. Also in the same book, we see a Bene Gesserit using a tone that was the equivalent of a verbal blow. She said to the guards, "Speak of this to no one." They froze. How long does that command last? It's not possible to know from that scene, but it must be for at least a short length of time. I think it lasts as long as the Bene Gesserit intends it to, if they include that part of their command at all. Otherwise, you might just keep doing what they have asked you to do without knowing. In Paul of Dune, a Bene Gesserit speaks to a man and tells him to stop and says, "You will wait for us here," as we observe the vendors and their wares, and yet he still tells them they need to wear a disguise. So that brings up the limits of the voice outside of the command of the man was able to help them. So perhaps you have some control over what you do depending on who uses the voice and the intent behind the question. The Bene Gesserit was amazed that the driver had the strength for such independent thought while under the control of the voice, which shows that normally that is not the case. How much control of someone else does the voice give the one who commands it? That's what we will look at in the next two examples. In Winds of Dune, it tells us, Tessia's larynx shut down, her vocal cords locked, even her lungs refused to exhale. As a Bene Gesserit, she'd been taught how to resist voice, but this oral blow had been delivered by a powerful expert, someone who had gauged Tessia, measured her, and knew her precise weak points, so the voice is able to have a big physical effect on the body and can even be used against a fellow Bene Gesserit if you had had time to register them. And it seems here the one who issued the command has more power in the voice, which I'd say counts as more experience in its use, more subtlety. Now, one of the cruelest examples of the voice, and to round out this video at the end, building on what we have seen from the Lady of Caladan. The command is said, "From now on, you will have no other thoughts but the litany against fear. No other words, no other memories or realities. The litany is you. The litany is all there is." It seems here the voice gives total command and is essentially killing someone with the voice, locking them into only one action. This was an experienced Bene Gesserit and a lesser sister. The same sister also commands other Bene Gesserit to finish themselves off in terms of their lives, and they obey, using it as a little weapon. I hope you enjoyed the video and the attempt to analyse some of the nuances of the voice. Drop the video a like if you did, please.